You're listening to the Nonprofit State of Minds podcast, an Angel Oak creative production.
Hey everybody, welcome. This is David Chatham with Angel Oak Creative. Welcome to our latest episode of Nonprofit State of Minds, our podcast where we pick the brains of nonprofit leaders and really try to help folks just make the most effective and impactful work of their work in the nonprofit sector. We've had some great guests this year. This is our fourth season, which is hard to believe. But really grateful for all the insights. Today is no exception. We have Chris LaTurno, who is president and CEO of Junior Achievement of Dallas. Welcome, Chris.
Well, good morning. Thanks, David. It's great to be with you. Appreciate it.
Well, for those on video, you'll see Chris is putting me to shame with his suit, and I've got my nonprofits North Carolina t-shirt on. So I hope nobody judges me for my lack of decorum this morning.
Got
But
a few meetings this morning, or else I'd be right with you.
well, you are CEO and president. I am
That's right.
not. So that's it. Well, good. Well, welcome, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chris and I have known each other for quite a while, but we just
And
reconnected on LinkedIn after I saw a recent post that Chris made, kind of challenging the nonprofit sector to do better when it comes to fundraising and other activities. And I said, that would make for an interesting conversation. So, thank you, Chris, for reconnecting and
absolutely.
for your willingness to have this conversation. Um, yeah, I'd love to hear. I think our folks would love to hear kind of your journey. How did you get into the nonprofit sector? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, Raleigh's got a big part to do with that.
Yeah.
My wife and I are getting ready to celebrate 27 years of marriage, but quite a while back, we were living in Bloomington, Illinois, had just started to have children. And we were going through a winter of winters, the good old Illinois, really tough winter. And I got home one night. I was working for Chase Bank at the time for business banking. I got home one night and Lisa said, "Chris, I don't think I can handle this winter anymore. I think I have to move." Really a crazy quick story is reached out to Bank of America and Wachovia at the time. David, bringing back some Wachovia
Oh yeah.
days there. And first job offer I had was to go to Destin, Florida.
Oh gosh.
And I thought, well, hey, you want a great place to live and great weather, and we went there, and it just didn't fit, right? Just didn't fit for our family, and but kept in touch, and I heard from John Messick, who I believe is still there in the Triangle in the banking world, and he asked if we would be interested in coming to Raleigh, North Carolina. And we looked it up and saw very quick you could be at the beach in 3 hours, and you could be at the mountains in 3 hours, and there was good shopping. And so Lisa
Yeah.
thought that'd be a great spot and great schools and everything else. And long story short, the reason I tell that story is we got there and the kids and Lisa hadn't moved down yet. And so I went to Jack Clayton and Jane Mitchell at the time at Wachovia and said, "Man, I really would love to find a nonprofit that I can really sink my teeth into. It would not only help me give back, but it would help me get to know the community, get to know those who are in the community." So that's how I started. And really went to a walk kickoff luncheon for at the time JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes
Oh
Research
yeah.
Foundation, and really didn't know a thing about type 1. I just thought there was just diabetes. I didn't know there was type 1 and a type 2, and just got involved. We got involved in the walk and took our kids. I remember the first walk we went to, we were pushing them around in a wagon,
Wow.
and led the bank fundraising activities for the walk that year and got involved. And we raised a lot of money and went after that, had coffee with the executive director at the time, Kathy Peterson. And she said, "Would you love to come on the board?" And I said, "I'd love to come on the board." So I got on the board there in Raleigh for JDRF. And, just fell in love with the mission and the organization and everything about it. And I think about 5 years on the board, and Lisa and I were having dinner. I had just come off the best banking year I'd ever had. And Lisa said, "I'm not for sure if you're a banker anymore." And I said, "Well, I'd love
Oh.
to know what I am, because I'm pretty sure I'm a banker." And she said, "You don't talk a lot about banking, but you sure do talk about JDRF a lot and just how much you
Mm.
love it." And so she said, "Maybe you can take
Yeah.
some of those skills as a banker transfer those over into being in the nonprofit space, and you can take some of those transferable skills and still feel like you're really involved in giving back to the community. And so, really, David, I started praying about it, prayed about it for a few weeks, and lo and behold, executive director resigned. I applied for the job, and I've now been in nonprofit for about 11 years. I was a banker for 13 and now in nonprofit for 11. So that's really the
Yeah.
journey that got me into nonprofits. And really from then on have been with JDRF, moved to Texas, ran the American Heart Association Dallas division for about 3 or 4 years, and now with Junior Achievement of Dallas.
No, that's great. Well,
Yeah.
I have yet to have one of these conversations where people had the intention of working in the nonprofit
Right.
sector, right?
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Sure.
nobody's like, "Hey, I'm going to go
No.
work in nonprofits," and it's always some
Yeah.
twisted journey
Yeah.
to get there. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to we need to
For
do
sure.
just a a book on my journey to the nonprofit sector. So.
It's a
Um,
curved line. It's a very curvy, jagged line, right?
It seems to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, when I caught your LinkedIn post
Yeah.
a couple, maybe a month or so ago, um, you spared no feelings in that. Yeah, if you would kind of let folks know what that post was about and just kind of,
Sure.
what prompted you to write it.
Well, I think the first thing would be is that, I now in the nonprofit space for about 11 years and have had some phenomenal team members, some phenomenal boards, some phenomenal donors, volunteers who have made a lot of successful things happen that have impacted a lot of people. So I first want to say that. But really, a couple of weeks back, it was really deciding that, I'm fully committed in what I do with Junior Achievement of Dallas, but also understanding that maybe some of that learning over the last 11 years, I could help others if they had a board retreat coming up or they had needed a keynote speaker or something like that. Take the learnings because there's been a lot of learnings that you have to learn. There's been a lot of successes, but there's also been a lot of learnings, and so to be able to just to help people through what I think is a tough space to be in. I think nonprofit is very rewarding, but man, it is a tough. It's a tough thing to do, right?
Yeah.
It just really is. And so I think that if I'm thinking of that post, I think of, I think we have to be honest where we are as a nonprofit. And there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of nonprofits. And I think they all want to do really great things. But I think we have to be
Yeah.
really honest of where we are. And I think we have to be really honest of what's that current state of our nonprofit, of our market, of our team, and then where do we want to go? But we cannot go where we want to go if we don't understand where we are, right? And I
Yeah.
think when I think of where we are, I think of everything from where we are in fundraising, where we are with our board, where we are with our development teams, where we are with our community impact team. Where are we and where do we want to go? And then I think we just have to be very honest. How are we doing with conversations? How are we doing with retaining? How are we doing with the events? And just be super honest and then start to build goals moving forward that we actually think that we can achieve and have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. Well, talk about that. Where are we? What's your
Yeah.
assessment of where we are as a
Yeah.
sector and what we're facing, how we're
Yeah.
responding, all of those things.
Well, I think a lot of it depends on your funding sources. I think there's a lot of people in the last year here that are just they're in a tough road, with from a funding perspective, especially if you're tied to state or federal funding at times. Here at Junior Achievement of Dallas, we're not tied to state funding. We're not tied to federal funding. We're raising dollars right here in Dallas. And Dallas is a very expanding area, very prosperous area. So I think there's a lot here, right? There's plenty of us here to grow and funding and do that. But I think when you talk to those counterparts that I have, I think there's a lot of tough things that they're working through. I think one of the toughest things internally that we're working through right now, David, is I think nonprofits in general are very transactional.
Mm,
And I think it's very easy to be transactional, but I think we need to be as relational as we can. And I've always said from 11 years back till today that if you are relational and if you are holding great conversations, if you're understanding where people are and what they want to do and you're providing good options, I think the numbers take care of themselves.
yeah.
But when we're very transactional, I think that we run into a lot of problems. And I think the nonprofit space in general is very transactional And I doubt that most donors that you sit down, the first thing they'd like to have is a transactional relationship. I just don't think that's what they want. I think they want to be courted, dated, valued, understood, given options, and understand from our perspective that sometimes the timing's not right for them, but that doesn't mean no. That just means it's not the right time for them right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, talk about that. What does transactional look like?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
I think I think the first thing is that we have to earn the right to make an ask
Mm,
in the nonprofit space. Again, I try to think of myself personally. I try to think when I donate to something, when I contribute to something, am I doing it because I have a passion for it or that I understand it? And so I think most organizations struggle, especially just to be very honest. And I'm not speaking on behalf of junior achievement nationally, but I think a lot of your national organizations struggle with quarterly semi-annual goals. There's a bucket, right? You've always heard the term bucket. I got a quarterly bucket I got to meet. Well, what happens is we just tend to create an atmosphere where we're always trying to churn a transaction. And
yeah.
so I think what that does is it goes down to your development folks who think it took me 2 months to get this appointment, right? I might not ever get it again, or it might be another 3 or 4 months. So while I'm here, I'm going to just give everything I can
Yeah.
about our organization, about every event,
Sell
about
it
every
hard, right?
mission, about everything. I'm just giving it everything out. And then if you'll just say one thing that I can latch onto, I'm gonna grab a hold of it and I'm gonna
Right.
hit you with about 80,000 things and hope to goodness I come out of that with either leaving a pamphlet or sending a pamphlet back over. And I think, long story short, I just think that we haven't earned the right to have the conversation to ask
Mm,
for volunteerism or a donation. And so I think my personal opinion is I think that we need to be 2 or 3 meetings. The first 2 or 3 meetings need to be about us understanding the donor, whether
mm,
that's an individual donor or whether that's a corporate donor. We need to understand them. We
yeah.
need to double click on some things they say so we can understand them better. And I think only after that second or third meeting can we start to earn the right to provide options, provide things that maybe they can think about, understand timing, how they want to do that. But I think first of all, we have to earn the right in the nonprofit space to ask for an investment into our organization. I really do.
No, that's great. I'm getting ready to do a presentation around audience segmentation, and
Yeah,
it's the same thing, right? That you're speaking to the person, you're trying to personalize that communication
yeah,
and not just mass communicate, right?
that's right.
And
Yeah,
I think that is a challenge for most organizations. And there's, I'm not going to make excuses for the nonprofit sector, but
sure.
there's capacity, right?
Yep,
There's, to your point, there's this kind of churn and burn. I've got to get stuff in the door, right? I've got to get
right.
my numbers there, and
Yeah,
that's a difficult place
yeah.
to be. So, um,
Well, and I think on that, David, too, I think one time, once we've earned the right to make the ask, I tell you what I've learned over the last 5, 6 years that's really important to me is that I think sometimes we can even look transactional then with an existing donor. So let's just say
yeah,
we've got a donor who traditionally is given $10,000 a year. And we know that, it's just been like clockwork. And what we do as an organization is we just go back, we have coffee or a meeting, and we say, hey, could you please give $10,000 again this year?
right.
And in some instances, I think that's fine. I think in a lot of instances, what people are wanting is for us to ask a question. And I've tended to see this question be really successful over the last 5, 6 years, which is, Mr. or Mrs. Donor, when you think of a significant investment in our mission, what does that look like to you?
Hmm.
And I
Wow.
think we'd be surprised sometimes, David, that the number goes from 10 to 20, 10 to 30, or maybe they ask, can I do a multi-year pledge?
Wow.
Sure, absolutely. But I think I struggle with sometimes. I don't know what David Chatham has in his banking account. I
Right.
don't. And you don't know what I hope you don't. You don't know what I've got in mind. So why don't we ask that question? We don't know if maybe
Hmm.
David and his family have, uh, there's been something that's happened. They've had an event and they've
Yeah.
had a windfall or taxes were better this year than they were last year. I
Yeah.
got a bonus at work. Sometimes that comes back with, Chris, I'd like to do $15,000 this year. And I'd like to do the 10 like I've always done it. But the other five, I'd love to you to kind of give me some ideas on how I could take that additional $5,000 and impact your organization. And I would tell you 9 times out of 10, their number's bigger than my number.
Yeah.
And that's the fun of it. That's really a
Yeah.
lot of fun because you kind of see them
No,
perk up.
that's a great question. I mean, I think, um, yes, I think, many of our clients come into their fundraising, you know, selling themselves short, right?
Right.
On
Right.
what is they're leaving money on the table, as they say.
That's
I
right.
know that's kind of a transactional type of thing, but it
Right.
really, I mean, I think that those kinds of questions are things that uh, I think are kind of uncomfortable for some people,
Yeah.
because I think
Yeah.
they feel like they're getting too personal or you're
Yeah.
getting nosy about their finances. But I think that for most folks, it's a reasonable question, right?
Mhm.
And you're not setting any expectation. You're opening the door, and I think
Yeah.
that's
That's right.
a great way to think about it.
Well, and I think
Um,
I
Go
think of
ahead.
another thing just real quick on that. I think that
Yeah.
I've had somebody say, well, Chris, I could give you more if I could give you stock gifts. Do you accept stock gifts?
Oh yeah. Right.
Right? Yeah, well, sure we do. Absolutely we do. But they don't know it, right? And so
Right.
sometimes just that question, what significance look like is they then start to figure out ways they actually could do it. And so then you open that up. Well, $10,000 check, $40,000 stock gift. Well, that just became a $50,000 gift, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
that's super important.
Right. No, that's a great point. So as we, start to think about this, you mentioned the role of boards in this.
Yeah.
What Talk about that a little bit. How, boards are, a source of great enjoyment in terms of
Right.
often, but they're also the source of great frustration for many
Yeah.
organizations. So
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think especially for those who are just going into a role as a president or executive director or CEO of a nonprofit, I think very honestly, you've got about a year or two,
Mm,
right? And I'm just being frank that I think that you've been hired in based off of based off of your transferable skills, whether you've been in a nonprofit or not. You've been hired because they think highly of you. They think highly of how you're thinking, of how you're going to move. And so I think one of the most key important things in that is how are you going to build out your board? And I think very
yeah.
quickly they have to understand the expectations of what you feel a board member is.
Yeah.
And I think, the first 30 days on any job as an executive director, market president, whatever it be, I think you got to meet with your staff and you got to understand why they're there, what they're about, what they love, what their challenges are. But then the first 60 days, you got to meet with every board member. You
Mm,
got to meet with them. You got to find out same thing. Who are you? What do you love? Why, are you volunteering as a board member? What brought you here? What do you like about what we're doing? What do you not like that we're doing? Figure that out. I think by doing both those things, you have a really good understanding of where people are and where they want to go, right?
yeah.
What your challenges, what are the things they love. But that board member perspective, you and I talked about this a little bit. I think there's four types of folks that interact with nonprofits. I think the first is somebody who's just a donor only, and that's great. I think there's people who are just a volunteer only, and I think that's great. And I think there's those who are donors and volunteers, and I think that's great. And there's a fourth, a little bit of a unicorn in there that they're a donor, they're a volunteer, and they're a really good board member.
Hmm.
And I think that board member is has to be dedicated, has to understand what they're getting into. They have to be vetted, so they understand where we're going. And so I think that board when you've got a highly impactful board, especially in the fundraising, it makes things a lot easier. It makes
Yeah.
things easier for you as a CEO or a market president, executive director. It makes it easier for your development folks. And I remember when I first started at JDRF in Raleigh, which again, I love Raleigh, love going back to visit folks and things, but I just think about those initial board members. I mean, they were passionate. And I just locked into that. And boy, if I was going to go meet with somebody there in Raleigh and I knew there was a connection with a board member, well, I would just grab that board member. I'd say, hey, I've got a coffee in 2 weeks. I really need you to come to that board meeting with me. And I need you to tell me about your son or your daughter who was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and like, how do you live every day with that disease? And I need you to tell that story.
Hmm.
That's powerful,
Yeah.
right? So I would even tell board members all the time, I'm not saying you have to go ask for money, but I need you to help me go ask for
Right.
money because that's a difference, right?
Yeah.
I'm paid staff. They're paying me to do it or my development team. But when a board member walks in, takes their time to do that, to either be in that meeting or to set that meeting up, then that's super important. And so I think that, first of all, your board makeup has got to be super, you have to understand exactly what you got. Again, be honest. Do we have a
Yeah.
corporate fundraising type board? If we don't, how do we go get it? How do we change it? And be honest with it. And then once you get that going, you got to really utilize that board to help you either get meetings or to help you have meetings in which they really bring a lot of value and have it be fun. And then I would say from a highly impactful board is once you have board members start to do that, celebrate them. One of the
Yeah.
things that I do every Friday is I send out a board email
Hmm.
and I celebrate board members who helped me get a meeting or went to a meeting with me or did something unique.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that's great. One, it helps celebrate them. Two, if you're not doing what you need to do on the board, you're exposed.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
mean that negative, but you're exposed. Nobody's mentioned my name for a while. I might want to get my name on the list, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that's super important as well.
No, I love that move, that weekly email
Yeah,
out to the board. I think, a lot of times boards only hear from you right before you get your
right.
little board packet before the meeting, right?
That's
And
right. Yeah,
and that's the only time they hear from you except in a meeting. So,
that's right.
they'll hear from an organization except in a meeting. So I think it's great to have, again, it goes back to being relational, right? And not just
Right. Yeah,
transactional, I
that's
think.
right.
So that's a great tip for those who are looking for some things. Make a note of that one. Maybe a Friday board email, I think, would
Yeah.
be a good a good strategic move to deepen those relationships. Um, you talk about also as we were having a conversation, you talked about the importance of being a conversationalist, right? Of
Yeah.
listening. That's a challenge for me. I have a hard, I love to talk, as obviously I have a podcast, but why is that such an important skill to be a conversationalist for people in the nonprofit sector?
Well, for me, it just goes back to when we're dating.
Yeah.
I think of when, I highly doubt. Now, and I know there's probably some out there, right? But maybe you see somebody from afar and you ask them for a date. Maybe you think that, that's the one. But I highly doubt that right after ordering dinner for the first time, the first question is, would you marry me? I just doubt that's a question, right? And I think sometimes that's what we do in the nonprofit space. We've got the
Right.
coffee, we've sat down. Would you like to sponsor the gala? Well, now hold on, hold on. So for me, being a conversationalist is don't make it about being a meeting. Make it
Mm,
being about being a conversationalist. And I think one of those big ways you can do that is, if we've all had that first meeting, right?
yeah.
We've sat down at the coffee shop or we've sat down somewhere, and there's that little wonky moment between catching up over what happened over the summer to we're going to talk nonprofit world, right? We're going to talk about our mission. And I think one of the things you can do to transition that for a lot of, especially folks new in development, is to say to the person after we've kind of gone through pleasantries and how are you doing in life, is just to say, hey, one of the ways that I've really helped people understand how to get involved in the community is I've just taken some time to ask a few questions. So that's one of the ways I've been successful is asking some questions. Would that be okay? And I've never had anybody say no.
Right.
They've always said yes. Now you got to have a question or two ready, right? You can't just like FBI this thing and be all over the
Right.
board. You got to have a good question or two to start with. And what I would say to conversationalists, one of the best things about being a conversationalist, David, is to your point, we all have struggled listening. I think a lot of studies show that once we ask a question, the average time to fall off and stop listening and start thinking about what we're going to say next is like 14 seconds. I mean, it's
Wow.
literally like you can't hardly get it out of your mouth and you're going to start doing it, right? But once you ask that question, I think the key to your point is how do you listen? And then how do they, when they say a key phrase that you'd like for information on, how do you double click? How do you come back and ask that question? And it goes back to that principle that 10% of the iceberg is above water and 90% is underneath.
Mm,
So just think about that, even in the education space. So if somebody says, if I'm sitting there having coffee and I'd ask the question, hey, listen, when it comes to impacting the education space, I've looked on your website, looks like there's some interest in helping the community when it comes to education. When you think of education, what's that look like?
yeah.
Right? And when they answer that question, they might say something like, well, we just really like to help with financial literacy. Well, when you say financial literacy, what does that look like to you?
Yeah.
So what you're trying to do is just get that underneath the water iceberg part to where you don't come back to the second meeting and you're just given, every solution and benefit you've
Yeah.
got just to hope something sticks. I think a lot of people would call it the spray and pray method. You just
Yeah.
put a whole bunch out there, hope it sticks, and then go grab it. I'd rather come back to the second meeting understanding financial literacy means this. They work with such and such age group in the schools. They have an acumen for wanting to get work in North Raleigh, or would rather volunteer in South Raleigh. Have all that understood so we can even ask more in-depth questions. And by the third or fourth time we meet with them, we're just picking up on conversation that we've had
Yeah.
before, right? That's all we're doing. And then
Yeah.
when we're making an ask, again, we're saying, hey, listen, I it's almost like when you're dating. This is our
Yeah.
third date. We're going to have our fourth date. Would you like for that to be pizza? Would you like for it to be Italian? What would you like for it to be? In the nonprofit space, we're coming back with options.
Yeah. So what do you say? I mean, I had this conversation just the other day. What do you say to that person who says, I'm meeting with, one of the most with one of the wealthiest people in our region,
Yeah,
right? In our area.
yeah,
I might only have one shot at this, right?
yeah,
I can't walk away without making that ask or be,
right.
what's the answer to that, right? Because they're meeting with
Yeah.
here locally it's well, I won't say any names, but here
That's
locally,
all right.
who it is
No,
here in Raleigh, right?
sure, sure.
It's three or four folks here that all have, are millionaires, maybe even a billionaire
Sure.
or two here.
Yeah,
But they feel like they've got that one shot, right? So
yeah.
how do they address that while still not being transactional? What's
Well,
a
I think they've got it. Here's what I would say. If I had some development manager come to me, or if I was thinking that same thing, again, we got some plenty of millionaires and billionaires here in
Oh
Dallas
yeah.
too. To your point, we all feel that. We feel that.
Yeah.
Got one shot. And I think we have to be honest about that. But I think we have to be super honest that they're not going to give us a gajillion dollars after meeting one time. And I think we need to own that, right?
Yeah.
I think that we
Yeah.
need to be honest about that. Because if we think that's what's going to happen, that's how we're going to act. I think we have
Yeah.
to go in and we almost have to, I don't mean this in a bad way. I think we have to play hard to get. I think a lot of folks that are in that space that are giving, they play a little bit of hard to get, right? They want to understand who we are and what we're about. So I think first is just to be honest about the situation. The second is be honest with them.
Yeah.
One of the ways, that I've worked with as a banker, and I would say this when I first got in the nonprofit space, I would say I've worked with some wealthy people. And one of the ways that we eventually ended up getting to where I understood them and they understood me is it took more than a time or two. And
Yeah.
is that okay with you? And I think the other question is that when you make that decision, but are there others on your team that you would like for me to meet with as well? I think of a lot of those folks, David, they either have a family office or a family foundation. Who's
Yeah.
that person that's inside that organization that's going to help make that decision as well? So maybe that's even your second meeting, which
Yeah.
is to say, listen, we've had a great coffee today, and I've got a much better idea of who you are as a philanthropic person. You've got a better idea. Maybe you've asked some questions. You understand who we are. But the next step, there's that assumptive of the next step is what are some things you'd like to know? Or who are some people within your family or within your foundation that you would like for me to meet with so that maybe they don't have that time, but maybe
Yeah.
somebody else does.
That's
So
a
again,
great.
I think we just got to be super honest up front to say one of the ways I've been successful with helping people who are very philanthropic is we've taken a time or two to meet, generally in a 2 to 3 month period, so we can understand each other and so that I can provide you with some options on how you can give, whether that's now or in
Yeah.
the future. So I think we just have to be honest.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great. Um, all these and we obviously many nonprofits have successes
yeah,
they like to celebrate and all. And you mentioned, making sure that we're celebrating those internally with our
yeah,
teams. Why is that
yeah.
important?
Well, it goes back to two mantras that are super important to me. The first one, it's been this way ever since I started at JDRF. I have two mantras really in the nonprofit space. And the first is to dream big, go big.
Mm,
That can be revenue, that can be community impact, that can be whatever. But here's what I'll give you a perfect example. If somebody gave me a goal of $2 million for an annual revenue, I'd quickly say that's our budget, but our dream big, go big budget is 2.5 million. And here's
okay.
why. I think we start to act, execute, strategize on 2.5. And lo and behold, when we do that, we beat 2 million,
Yeah.
right? Because we're thinking of 2.5. That's what we
Yeah.
look. That's what we
It's
do.
all a mental game, right?
All mental game, right? Now, if we don't hit dream big, go big, that's okay. We're going to celebrate that we went over budget. So we're going to celebrate either way. And if we hit dream big, go big, we're really going to celebrate it, right? So we hit that number. But to your point, the second part of that, where I think most nonprofits, and this goes back to our first couple of things we talked about, which is there's a lot of nonprofits that raise a lot of money, David, and sometimes they've got really bad team culture at the same time. We
Mm,
raise a lot of money,
yeah.
but we're leaving dead bodies on the side of the road while we do it. And I don't
Mm.
think that's how the nonprofit space should work. The second mantra for me is to encourage and take care of one another. So I
Oh
do
yeah.
want to dream big and go big. I want to do great things, but I want to encourage and take care of people along the way. To give you an idea, I book in my weeks usually. My weeks start with a Monday morning moment where I send that out to all of our internal staff members and team members. And it could be something about our mission. It could be something about how to handle stress on the weekends. It could be really anything, but it's
Yeah.
super positive. And on Fridays, try to book in that with good news. What are some
Mm,
good things that our team members have done to highlight our team members, right, of what they've done?
yeah.
And I always want to copy in on that regional or national leadership. So I want our team to see that they're being exposed for their good work by regional or national leadership. And I think that
Mm,
really does a lot. One, it lets national or regional know what's going on, highlight some people, but also makes our team members feel well. So I think you've got to really
that's
encourage and
great.
take care of your people. And I think you can do it from myriad ways.
Yeah.
One of my best friends in the world, I think, is leading one of the greatest turnarounds in history of business. And I think that's Robert Bueller, who is now the president and CEO of Crane Stationery, which is making a huge comeback. And
Mm.
he was there with MMI Public Relations and Bearing and
Oh
some other
yeah. I remember
different
him in
things.
mine. Yeah.
Had a shop downtown Raleigh, stationery type, really paper goods type thing. And I think handwritten notes are super important, not only for donors, but I think they're super important for our team members. Write a team member a note, put it on their desk, let them know how they're valued. I think encouragement boxes are super important. I think those are great. You can have encouragement boxes placed on people's desk.
Mm,
You could have some paper next to that. Have people just write anonymous notes when somebody on their team does a good job. Take that note and just leave it face down on that desk. When the person gets there, they oh my gosh, what's on my desk? They read it. They take and they put it in their encouragement box for when the days are when we're
mm,
missing goal or when we're not doing well. They pull out the encouragement box notes and they look at it and they go, really, I do have what it takes. And
yeah.
I can do this. And my fellow teammates think highly of me. My boss thinks highly of me. My leaders think highly of me. So I think we've got to do that in the nonprofit space
Mm,
because we're not paying the most, right, of all people
yeah.
in the world. And so I think we had to find ways to do that. And then another way I would just, if somebody's got whether you got a small team or a big team, I would, on Monday mornings, a lot of times I'd stop at Panera, grab some bagels and some donuts. I'd put them on a cart and I just walk around on Monday mornings. This is when I was at the American Heart Association. I just walk around Monday mornings and ask people how their weekend went and give them a
Yeah.
cup of coffee with some creamer and a donut.
Yeah.
Right? That,
Yeah.
that just that just lets people know they're cared for.
Yeah. I think probably some of our executive directors who are listening are going, where does this guy have this time? Right? Where does he have the time to send an email Monday morning and
Yeah.
an email to team on Friday and then a board
Uh,
member? Why is it, you obviously prioritize those things,
yeah.
right? Is that, I mean, what's your approach to having enough time, enough margin to do these things that are making a difference within the organization and with donors?
Well, I think the two most important people we have are our donors and our employees.
Yeah.
And so why
Mhm.
would we not give them the time and the value, right? And I think
Yeah. Say
Bob
that,
Ingram,
I always like to get people to repeat things that I think are critical. Say that one more time about donors and
yeah, I think the two most important people that we work with every single day are our donors and our team members. And so if we can't give them time and priority, then I'm not for sure, we've probably got our values a little sideways. And yeah,
preaching, Chris.
Bob Ingram was a phenomenal guy there in Raleigh for a long time. And I just thought highly of Bob Ingram both him and Jack Clayton,
Mm,
Jeff Stocks, and a lot of other people really uh, drilled into me through just great thought, which was handwritten notes. And again,
mm,
Robert Bueller with Crane, I can't tell you how much I value what he does. And Crane has a great product. And I just take time every Friday Just calendar it out for 30 minutes. And that's when I write a handwritten note. Or if I have some in my bag. And if I have some, people say, well, how do you have the time? Well, if I get out of a meeting with KPMG in downtown Dallas, I'm going to get in the car. I have to get in the car. And I'm
Yeah.
going to take my handwritten note in an envelope and I'm going to address it to somebody and I'm going to stick it in the mailbox on my way back to work or when I get to work. So I make that time. It's 3 minutes. Have
Yeah.
stamps in your car, put them in there, be done. And then Monday morning or Sunday night, I'll just go ahead and do my Monday morning moment. First thing, I'm an early morning guy. So do that. And then on Fridays, again, I've got time set aside on Fridays to where throughout the week, I've started an email for my board. And as the week's gone along, I'll just take stuff and put it in that email draft so that Friday, it's kind of built out.
Yeah.
It's really built out and I can then take that, finish it up. And then sometimes that goes out Friday and sometimes it goes out Saturday. Just to be truthful, over a morning cup of coffee. And, it just
Yeah.
boom, goes out. But I think you gotta make time for it. You got to calendar it for what's important.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, thank you for this conversation as we
Yeah.
kind of wrap up
Thank
here.
you.
What are the one or two things you really want to make sure people heard today to help us be a better nonprofit sector and to be more
Sure.
effective nonprofit leaders?
I think two really important things to me for leaders in this space is I think when you're sitting in the chair they're in right now, I really want you to know that you've got what it takes.
Mm,
Your organization has thought highly of you. They brought you in, whether you've been there for 1 month or whether you've been there for 10 years. They think highly of you and you've got tremendous value. So I would say to them the same thing I would say to my kids is you have what it takes. And don't
mm,
ever doubt that, right? And if you start to doubt it, get along to some people who can tell you different, right? But you've got what it takes. You're in the right spot, right role. You can do this. The second is make fundraising fun. Fundraising has got to be fun. If fundraising is mundane and
mm,
hard and transactional and rushed, it's not enjoyable for you and it's not enjoyable for your team. Make it fun. Figure out ways to make it fun.
mm.
And if you'll do that for your team and for your board, if you'll make it fun, then you've got a really good shot.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, put the fun in fundraising, right?
That's it.
That's
You
great.
bet. Wish I would have coined that a long time ago. It would
I
have
know,
been
right?
good.
Chris, thank you so much for your time. Tell people how they can learn, maybe get in touch with you if they want to, have a conversation, since you're such
Yeah.
a great conversationalist, or,
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more about how they can find out about Junior Achievement of Dallas as well.
Well, jadallas.org is Junior Achievement of Dallas, our website, and you can reach out through us there. I think that I'm not a social media guy. I don't do Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all that stuff, X, whatever it's called. I don't do all that stuff, but I do spend a little bit of time on LinkedIn. So you could reach right out to me via LinkedIn. And again, if I could ever be of service to anybody as they look at strategy, as they look at fundraising, as they look at retreat type stuff, I'm more than happy to help. Just reach out through LinkedIn and more than happy to help with that.
And, if Chris responds to me, I'm guessing he'll respond to just about anybody.
I
So,
promise you I'll respond. And I've liked you for a long time, my friend. And
well,
I appreciate everything. You have always been a great friend, and I love what Angel Oak does. I think you guys create great material, great thought leadership, and I know you help a lot of people. So and
thank you.
nonprofits need folks like yourself. So we appreciate you a lot.
Well, thank you. We're so grateful for that. And yeah, if people want to learn more about Angel Oak Creative, angeloakcreative.com. I'm on LinkedIn, David Chatham. Love to have conversations too. I will try to listen. I have a hard time with that, but I will do better, Chris. I will try to listen. And hopefully you felt heard today.
Thank you.
I struggle not to, because you're right. I think mine is like 2 seconds. I'm already thinking about the next question, right?
I'm with you.
So,
I'm with you.
14 seems like a lifetime. I would love
I know,
to.
right?
Well, Chris, thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you for all the work
You as
that you
well.
do, and look
you.
forward to staying in touch.
Sounds good, David. Thank you, my friend.